Commentary. First portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 1. 1 And he called to Moses, and the Lord spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, 2 Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, when a man from among you brings a sacrifice to the Lord, from animals, from cattle, or from the flock you shall bring your sacrifice. 3 If his sacrifice is a burnt offering from cattle, an unblemished male he shall bring it. He shall bring it willingly to the entrance of the tent of meeting, before the Lord. 4 And he shall lean his hand forcefully upon the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted for him to atone for him. 5 And he shall slaughter the young bull before the Lord. And Aaron's descendants, the Kohanim, shall bring the blood, and dash the blood upon the altar, around the altar, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. 6 And he shall skin the burnt offering, and cut it into its prescribed sections. 7 And the descendants of Aaron the Cohen shall place fire on the altar, and arrange wood on the fire. 8 And Aaron's descendants, the Kohanim, shall then arrange the pieces, the head and the fat, on top of the wood which is on the fire that is on the altar. 9 And its innards and its legs, he shall wash with water. Then the Cohen shall cause to go up in smoke all of the animal on the altar, as a burnt offering, a fire offering, with a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. 10 And if his offering is brought from the flock from sheep, or from goats as a burnt offering he shall sacrifice it an unblemished male. 11 And he shall slaughter it on the northern side of the altar, before the Lord. And Aaron's descendants, the Kohanim, shall dash its blood upon the altar, around. 12 And he shall cut it into its prescribed sections, with its head and its fat, and the Cohen shall arrange them on top of the wood which is on the fire that is on the altar. 13 And the innards and the legs, he shall wash with water. Then the Cohen shall offer up all of the animal, and cause it to go up in smoke on the altar. It is a burnt offering, a fire offering, with a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. Second portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 1. 14 And if his sacrifice to the Lord is a burnt offering from birds, he shall bring it from turtle doves or from young doves. 15 And the Cohen shall bring it near to the altar, and nip off its head, and cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, and its of the birds' blood shall be pressed out upon the wall of the altar. 16 And he shall remove its crop along with its entrails, and cast it next to the altar on the east side, to the place of the ashes. 17 And he shall split it open with its wing feathers intact, but he shall not tear it completely apart. The Cohen shall then cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, on top of the wood which is on the fire. It is a burnt offering, a fire offering, with a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 2. 1 And if a person brings a meal offering to the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour. He shall pour oil over it and place frankincense upon it. 2 And he shall bring it to Aaron's descendants, the Kohanim, and from there, he and the Cohen shall scoop out his fistful of its fine flour and its oil, in addition to all its frankincense. Then the Cohen shall cause its reminder to go up in smoke on the altar. It is the fire offering, with a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. 3 And what remains of the meal offering shall belong to Aaron, and to his descendants. It is the holy of holies from the fire offerings of the Lord. 4 And if one brings a meal offering baked in an oven, it shall consist of either unleavened loaves made of fine flour mixed with oil, or unleavened wafers anointed with oil. 5 And if a meal offering on a pan is your sacrifice, it shall be made of fine flour, mixed with oil, it shall be unleavened. 6 Break it into pieces, and you shall then pour oil over it. It is a meal offering. Third portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 2. 7 And if your sacrifice is a meal offering made in a deep pot, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. 8 Thus you shall bring the meal offering which shall be made from these types, to the Lord. And he shall bring it to the Cohen, and he shall bring it close to the altar. 9 And the Cohen shall lift out, from the meal offering, its reminder, and cause it to go up in smoke on the altar. It is the fire offering, with a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. 10 And what remains of the meal offering shall belong to Aaron and his descendants. It is the holy of holies from the fire offerings of the Lord. 11 No meal offering that you sacrifice to the Lord shall be made out of anything leavened. For you shall not cause to go up in smoke any leavening or any honey, as the fire offering to the Lord. 12 However, you shall bring them as a first of fruit offering to the Lord, nevertheless, they shall not go up on the altar as a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. 13 And you shall salt every one of your meal offering sacrifices with salt, and you shall not omit the salt of your God's covenant from being placed upon your meal offerings. You shall offer salt on all your sacrifices. 14 When you bring a meal offering of the first grains to the Lord, you shall bring your first grain meal offering from barley, as soon as it ripens, parched over the fire, kernels full in their husks, ground into coarse meal. 15 And you shall put oil on it, and place frankincense upon it. It is a meal offering. 16 Then, the Kohen shall cause its reminder to go up in smoke, taken from its coarse meal and from its oil, with all its frankincense. It is the fire offering to the Lord. Fourth portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 3. 1 If his sacrifice is a peace offering, if he brings it from cattle, whether male or female, unblemished he shall bring it before the Lord. 2 And he shall lean his hand forcefully upon the head of his sacrifice, and slaughter it at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And Aaron's descendants, the Kohanim, shall dash the blood upon the altar around. 3 And from the peace offering, he shall bring a fire offering to the Lord, comprised of the fat covering the innards and all the fat that is on the innards. 4 And the 2 kidneys along with the fat that is upon them which is over the flanks. And he shall remove the diaphragm with the liver, along with the kidneys. 5 And Aaron's descendants shall cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, apart from the burnt offering, which is on top of the wood that is on the fire. It is the fire offering, with a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. 6 And if his sacrifice for a peace offering to the Lord is from the flock, whether male or female, unblemished he shall bring it. 7 If he brings a sheep as his sacrifice, then he shall bring it before the Lord. 8 And he shall lean his hand forcefully upon the head of his sacrifice, and slaughter it before the tent of meeting. And Aaron's descendants shall dash its blood upon the altar around. 9 And from the peace offering, he shall bring a fire offering to the Lord, comprised of its choicest part the complete tail, which he shall remove opposite the kidneys, and the fat covering the innards and all the fat which is on the innards. 10 And the 2 kidneys along with the fat that is upon them, which is over the flanks. And he shall remove the diaphragm with the liver, along with the kidneys. 11 And the Kohen shall cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, as food for the fire, to the Lord. 12 And if his sacrifice is a goat, he shall bring it before the Lord. 13 And he shall lean his hand forcefully upon its head and slaughter it before the tent of meeting, and Aaron's descendants shall dash its blood upon the altar around. 14 And from it, he shall bring his offering a fire offering to the Lord, comprised of the fat covering the innards, and all the fat which is on the innards. 15 And the 2 kidneys with the fat that is upon them, which is over the flanks. And he shall remove the diaphragm with the liver, along with the kidneys he shall remove it. 16 And the Kohen shall cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, consumed as a fire offering, with it a pleasing fragrance. All sacrificial fat belongs to the Lord. 17 This is an eternal statute for all your generations, in all your dwelling places, you shall not eat any fat, or any blood. Fifth portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 4. 1 And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 2 Speak to the children of Israel, saying, If a person sins unintentionally, by committing one of all the commandments of the Lord, which may not be committed, and he commits part of one of them. 3 If the anointed Kohen sins, bringing guilt to the people, then he shall bring for his sin which he has committed, an unblemished young bull as a sin offering to the Lord. 4 And he shall bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting before the Lord, and he shall lean his hand forcefully upon the bull's head and slaughter the bull before the Lord. 5 And the anointed Kohen shall take from the bull's blood and bring it into the tent of meeting. 6 And the Kohen shall dip his finger into the blood and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times before the Lord, before the dividing curtain of the sanctuary. 7 And the Kohen shall place some of the blood on the horns of the incense altar which is in the tent of meeting, before the Lord, and he shall pour all the blood of the bull onto the base of the altar used for burnt offerings, which is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. 8 And all the fat of the sin offering bull he shall separate from it, the fat covering the innards, and all the fat that is on the innards. 9 And the 2 kidneys along with the fat that is on them, which is on the flanks, and the diaphragm with the liver, along with the kidneys, he shall remove it. 10 Just as was separated from the bull sacrificed as at a peace offering, the Kohen shall then cause them to go up in smoke on the altar used for burnt offerings. 11 He shall then take the bull's skin and all of its flesh, along with its head and along with its legs, its innards and its waste matter. 12 He shall take out the entire bull to a clean place outside the camp, namely, to the ash depository, and he shall burn it in fire on wood. Thus, it shall be burnt in the ash depository. 13 And if the entire community of Israel errs, because a matter was hidden from the eyes of the congregation, and they commit one of all the commandments of the Lord, which may not be committed, incurring guilt. 14 When the sin which they had committed becomes known, the congregation shall bring a young bull as a sin offering. They shall bring it before the tent of meeting. 15 The elders of the community shall lean their hands forcefully upon the bull's head before the Lord, and one shall slaughter the bull before the Lord. 16 The anointed Cohen shall bring some of the bull's blood into the tent of meeting. 17 And the Cohen shall dip his finger from the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord, before the dividing curtain. 18 And he shall then place some of the blood on the horns of the altar that is before the Lord in the tent of meeting. And then he shall pour all the blood onto the base of the altar used for burnt offerings, which is at the entrance to the tent of meeting. 19 And he shall separate all its fat from it and cause it to go up in smoke on the altar. 20 He shall do to the bull just as he did to the bull of the sin offering, thus he shall do to it. Thus the Cohen shall make atonement for them, the community, and they will be forgiven. 21 And he shall take the bull outside the camp and burn it, just as he burned the first bull. It is a sin offering for the congregation. 22 If a leader of Israel sins and unintentionally commits one of all the commandments of the Lord, which may not be committed, incurring guilt. 23 If his sin that he has committed is made known to him, then he shall bring his offering, an unblemished male goat. 24 And he shall lean his hand forcefully upon the goat's head and slaughter it in the place where he slaughters burnt offerings before the Lord. It is a sin offering. 25 And the Cohen shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and place it on the horns of the altar used for burnt offerings. And then he shall pour its blood onto the base of the altar used for burnt offerings. 26 And he shall cause all its fat to go up in smoke on the altar, just like the fat of the peace offering. Thus the Cohen shall make atonement for his sin, and he will be forgiven. Sixth portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 4. 27 If one person of the people of the land commits a sin unintentionally, by his committing one of the commandments of the Lord which may not be committed, incurring guilt. 28 If his sin that he committed is made known to him, he shall bring his sacrifice, an unblemished female goat, for his sin that he committed. 29 And he shall lean his hand forcefully on the head of the sin offering, and he shall slaughter the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. 30 And the Cohen shall take some of its blood with his finger, and place it on the horns of the altar used for burnt offerings. And then he shall pour all of its remaining blood at the base of the altar. 31 And he shall remove all of its fat, just as the fat was removed from the peace offering. The Cohen shall then cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, as a pleasing fragrance to the Lord. Thus the Cohen shall make atonement for him, and he will be forgiven. 32 If he brings a sheep for his sin offering, he shall bring an unblemished female. 33 He shall lean his hand forcefully upon the head of the sin offering and slaughter it as a sin offering in the place where he slaughters the burnt offering. 34 And the Cohen shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and place it on the horns of the altar used for burnt offerings. And then he shall pour all of its blood onto the base of the altar. 35 And he shall remove all its fat, just as the sheep's fat is removed from the peace offering. The Cohen shall then cause them to go up in smoke on the altar, upon the fires for the Lord. Thus the Cohen shall make atonement for him, for his sin which he committed, and he will be forgiven. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 5. 1 If a person sins, whereby he accepts an oath, and he is a witness to some matter, by seeing or knowing it, yet he does not testify, he shall bear his transgression. 2 Or if a person touches anything unclean, whether it is the carcass of an unclean wild animal, or the carcass of an unclean domestic animal, or the carcass of an unclean creeping animal, and it was hidden from him, he incurs guilt. 3 Or if he touches the uncleanness of a human, with any uncleanness through which he may become defiled, and it is hidden from him, and later he knows, he has incurred guilt. 4 Or if a person swears, expressing with his lips to do harm, or to do good, whatever a man may express in an oath, and it is hidden from him, and later he knows, he is guilty in any one of these cases. 5 And it shall be, when someone incurs guilt in any one of these cases, that he shall confess the sin which he had committed. 6 And he shall bring his guilt offering to the Lord for his sin which he had committed, a female animal from the flock, either a sheep or a goat, for a sin offering. And the Cohen shall make atonement from his sin. 7 But if he cannot afford a sheep, he shall bring as his guilt offering for that sin that he had committed 2 turtle doves, or 2 young doves before the Lord, 1 for a sin offering, and 1 for a burnt offering. 8 He shall bring them to the Cohen, who shall first offer up that bird, which is designated for the sin offering. He shall cut its head, by piercing with his nail opposite the back of its head, but shall not separate it. 9 He shall sprinkle from the blood of the sin offering on the wall of the altar, and the remainder of the blood shall be pressed out onto the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. 10 And he shall offer up the second one as a burnt offering, according to the law. Thus the Cohen shall make atonement for him, from his sin which he had committed, and he shall be forgiven. 7th portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 5. 11 But if he cannot afford 2 turtle doves, or 2 young doves, then he shall bring as his sacrifice for his sin 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a sin offering. He shall not put oil over it, nor shall he place frankincense upon it, for it is a sin offering. 12 He shall bring it to the Cohen, and the Cohen shall scoop out a fistful as its reminder, and cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, upon the fires of the Lord. It is a sin offering. 13 Thus the Cohen shall make atonement for his sin that he committed in any one of these cases, and he shall be forgiven. And it shall belong to the Cohen like the meal offering. 14 And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 15 If a person commits a betrayal and trespasses unintentionally against one of the things sacred to the Lord, he shall bring as his guilt offering to the Lord an unblemished ram from the flock with a value of silver shekels, in accordance with the shekel of the sanctuary for a guilt offering. 16 And what he has trespassed against the holy thing he shall pay, and he shall add 1/5 of its value to it, and he shall give it to the Cohen. The Cohen shall then make atonement for him through the ram of the guilt offering, and he shall be forgiven. 17 If a person sins and commits one of the commandments of the Lord which may not be committed, but he does not know, he is guilty, and he shall bear his transgression. 18 He shall bring an unblemished ram from the flock, with the value for a guilt offering, to the Cohen. The Cohen shall then make atonement for his unintentional sin, which he committed, and did not know, and he shall be forgiven. 19 It is a guilt offering, he has incurred guilt before the Lord. 20 And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 21 If a person sins, betraying the Lord by falsely denying to his fellow concerning a deposit, or money given in hand, or an object taken by robbery, or he withheld funds from his fellow. 22 Or he found a lost article, and he denied it and swore falsely regarding any one of all these cases whereby a man may sin. 23 And it shall be, when he has sinned and is guilty, that he shall return the article which he had robbed, or the funds which he had withheld, or the item which had been deposited with him, or the article which he had found. 24 Or anything else, regarding which he had sworn falsely, he shall pay it with its principal, adding its fifths to it. He shall give it to its rightful owner on the day he repents for his guilt. 25 He shall then bring his guilt offering to the Lord, an unblemished ram from the flock with the same value, for a guilt offering, to the Cohen. 26 And the Cohen shall make atonement for him before the Lord, and he shall be forgiven for any one of all cases whereby one may commit a sin, incurring guilt through it. Maftir portion. Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 5.